Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the Omni viewer, and I decided there was something regarding Doctor Strange I wanted to talk about again, but it delves into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, spoilers ahead. Put it in the title and everything. If you keep watching and you haven't seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, by this point it's your own fault, okay? Okay, as long as we know where to place the blame. So, what did I want to talk about? I wanted to talk about how Doctor Strange beats the villain, Dormammu specifically, but also basically how Doctor Strange wins. Because I think it's actually kind of significant. Not necessarily just for the Marvel Cinematic Universe or for the character, but for quite possibly comic book movies and the action genre as a whole. Because it's very different from how most superheroes usually win, in movies at least. When it comes to these kind of movies, the most common way that the hero wins is to basically beat the bad guy into submission. Fisticuffs, whoever hits hardest or the most, and basically whoever hits hardest wins. And that's usually the hero. So physical confrontation that either pounds the villain into submission or otherwise kills him. Quite common back in the day, not so common now. But the second most common way I can think of would be... What even is the other most common way? Usually it's just physical confrontation. But with Doctor Strange, it was very different, I'm surprised to say, because if you've seen the movie, and I presume you have if you're still watching, you know what happens. Doctor Strange goes into Dormammu's shadow realm, which is beyond time, and thus time doesn't exist there, but he introduces time into it by creating that time loop, which appears as the glowing green circles around his arm, so that Dormammu kills him, but he comes back, kills him again, comes back, basically creating a time loop where Dormammu cannot actually win. Doctor Strange can't win either. He's going to keep dying for eternity, but Dormammu won't win either. It's a complete stalemate unless Dormammu surrenders. And that's interesting. Before I move on, quick little sidebar. It's not credited, but Benedict Cumberbatch apparently did the motion capture and voice for Dormammu as well as performing Strange, because, the guy did Smaug, of course he's going to do this. And when I was telling Second Opinion about that, I said, so basically, he'd be arguing with himself for eternity, and he'd be losing that argument. So, talk about a fate worse than death. Anyway, so that's what I find interesting. Rather than punch Dormammu or kill Dormammu or something like that, Doctor Strange instead outsmarted him, went entirely on his wits, and used magic, of course, but otherwise forced him into a situation where he had to surrender. And that's interesting to me. I'm really intrigued by that whole concept, because you don't really see it that often. I don't know if I'm just not thinking of another example where it happened, but that's pretty interesting right there. Because, first of all, it's good that they did that for Doctor Strange specifically, because if they'd had him, physically defeat Dormammu or kill him even, that would be it. He's too powerful then. The Avengers movies would just be him showing up, clapping his hands, and everything is back to normal, so it's just another hour and a half of them eating shawarma. I don't know. But yeah, that's one of the things I find that people have a hard time with when writing Doctor Strange in the comics, is that he is too powerful. So by establishing that he is not that strong in his first movie, that's a good thing. We don't want him to be that strong. We want there to be that challenge. That's how we get invested. But also, I realized the more I thought about it, I want to see more of that in my superhero movies. Not for every superhero, because it doesn't work for every superhero. There are quite a few superheroes out there for whom punching the bad guy is the only option. The Hulk, he is all about physicality. He has to beat the bad guy into submission. Or Tony Stark is kind of the bridge between outsmarting and defeating physically, because he uses his wits, but he uses it to build technology that puts him on a higher playing field. But yeah, I think this opens up some interesting possibilities for characters who are more about the mind. Because, like even the Sherlock Holmes movies that Guy Ritchie made, Sherlock Holmes is a very mental character most of the time, but they made him a more physical character, which is in keeping with the books technically, but I know a lot of people didn't like that. I like those movies, but I know a lot of you didn't. Anyway, also Robert Downey Jr. and Benedict Cumberbatch connection there with Sherlock Holmes. Never mind. Point is, this could be interesting if they brought in characters like, I don't know, let's just say, going into DC Comics, let's say they brought in The Question or Sandman, who I mentioned in that one list that I'll link in the description if you don't know what I'm talking about characters I want to show up in the DC movies. They're more like detectives. Actually, speaking of detectives, Batman is supposedly a detective, right? I mean, you wouldn't know it if you've just seen the movies or watched the cartoons or anything, because they almost never do anything with that. In fact, the only thing I can really think of is, as far as the movies goes, is in The Dark Knight when he did that whole thing of reconstructing the bullet to get a fingerprint, which was confusing and didn't actually go anywhere anyway, so screw it, I don't care, I don't know if it even counts. But yeah, just think about this for a minute. The emphasis on the Batman movies is always that he has the technology and he has the physical strength, maybe not superhuman, but more than most people, and that's how he always solves the problems. But think about if they actually play to the idea that everyone keeps saying, that Batman is smart and that he can outwit the bad guy. I mean, if you put less emphasis in a Batman movie on the technology and all the stuff like that, all the fight scenes, and you put it more on him being a detective and solving a mystery, I mean, wow, that would be such a great way to build up atmosphere in Gotham City, and that would be cool. Yeah, I think this could be quite an interesting change-up if people catch on to it. Doctor Strange is doing well, as most of the Marvel movies have done, so of course it's going to have some impact on how comic book movies in general go forward, certainly on a visual angle, I'm sure, but I'm hoping that they pick up on that as well, that the solution isn't always to just lash out like this. Sometimes you have to lash out with this. The hat specifically, but also what's underneath the hat, which is the head, and within the head is the mind. I don't know what I just said either. But yeah, I think that's an interesting idea. I kind of want to see more of that going forward from these movies. Who knows? They might pick up on it, they might not. It might just be something that winds up being exclusive to Doctor Strange. I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up because I thought it was interesting, and it's something I'd really like to see more of. Also, since we're talking about spoilers, that little mid-credits scene where Doctor Strange meets with Thor, I am curious to see where that's going too, because up to now we haven't had any word, at least as far as I know, that Doctor Strange would be involved in Thor Ragnarok. But if he is, that'll definitely be interesting. We know Hulk is going to be in that, or maybe they're just setting it up for the Avengers later on, I don't know. Either way, it's going to be interesting. Of course, these movies are always interesting, right? So, well, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. Different ending with Doctor Strange, in a good way, the kind of ending I want to see more of. Not across the board, but I definitely want to see more endings like this. More heroes who are more about using their brains than about using the brawn. I would like to know what you think as well now. Do you agree with me? Disagree? Do you think I'm completely off base in my interpretation? Go ahead, leave a comment, make your own video response. Let's see what we can figure out. And who knows, If we get this ball rolling and enough people see these sort of things, maybe the studios will catch on. It could happen. But anyway, till such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off. I still can't teleport. I did it once, I swear.